Yeah, so you're going from university, shooting at games and stuff, and you're very reliable at that level where they can call you anytime to go shoot games there. Describe, basically being the one that they rely on to shoot at either Canadian games, and what is the process? Can anybody right now basically write an email and shoot at these games, or do you need to have some type of track record to do that?
So I've never shot. It's tricky. You honestly, they're not going to go and say, hey, do you have a degree in photography? Do you have this? No one giving out press access is going to be necessarily looking to make sure that you have the qualifications. What matters is that you have connections who can get access to games. So that's where having an outlet is the most important thing. You can get into, anyone can get in, but you have to prove that you're able to do it. So that's where kind of having experience comes in. At the very least, you gotta know how to use a camera. But it's an exciting time because even if you're not on the sideline shooting game, you still have a story to tell. You can still be in the fans section and get a unique perspective on a game. I don't shoot the Canadian men's national team or any Canadian national team at the moment for Canada Soccer. It's for my outlet, but there are tons of outlets out there who there's so many opportunities right now to create an outlet. This is a great time to start getting into Canadian football, even football in the States. It's like a period of growth where people are still figuring things out. In Europe, for example, it's a little harder might be a little more difficult to get into a Premier League match because the structure's a lot more set in stone there, and you need to have agencies, you need to have all this, but in Canadian football, it's kind of like this moment of just, there's no one's ever going to say, like I said, you don't need to have a degree or anything, but you have to prove to people who are willing to back you up and essentially bring you to games that you have the skill.
Makes sense. Describe the match day experience, for example, whether that be, MLS, CPL game or whatever. What is the process that you go through that maybe fans don't go through? Fans go through the gate, shows their ticket, gets in. What is the preparation for you on a match day?
Yeah, it can already start way before. It depends, let's say a Whitecaps game, I've already got my press pass sorted out to the season. I don't need to keep reapplying each game. But say I'm going to Pacific on the island, or I'm going to a Canada game, I send an email. My outlet, we send an email, a group one for writers, photographers, videographers, however many people we're bringing, and we say, we just basically ask for a press pass. They let us know, okay, you've been approved. So we go. I'll go and I love to be at the stadium as early as possible. Sometimes they let you in 3 hours before. I'll usually do 2.5 hours before, 2 hours before kickoff, before the fans are there, so that I can take my time. So I go to wherever it is I need to pick up my pass, pick it up, and just go. And I can just basically just show the pass, let security see my camera bag, go into the stadium, and I'm usually there before the fans are in. And there's usually a dedicated room for photographers to set up our gear, to edit photos. So I get kind of set up in there, take my time. And I'm usually not too stressed, just taking it easy. I like to get some warm-up shots just in case, to sort of get warmed up, test the lighting, because and it'll usually change since most games are outdoors. Just gotta kind of see where where I need to adjust settings during the game. And then that's sort of, once the game started, I'm usually in a seat I'll pick a seat before the game where like I want to shoot. Usually if I'm shooting a Vancouver game, I want to be on their attacking side because I want to get the goals. Those are the exciting moments that in a game are like, no one's going to remember this one random defensive play. Everyone's going to remember the goal.
Sorry, defender.
So
Sorry.
yeah, that's the thing. I always feel bad because I never get shots of defenders, and then my writer like was asking me, "Hey, do you have a shot of this guy? He was my man of the match." I was like, he didn't come up for a corner. I got nothing for you. You'll have to use an old photo. So it's yeah, I always feel bad. I never touch defenders, but the exciting plays are always the goals. So I usually set up on the offensive side if there's a specific team I'm shooting, and set up around just behind the goal, about just over to the side near wherever the side of the box is. That's usually like where I love shooting from. And for 45 minutes, it can be either absolutely nothing. It can be like just sitting there. Like I'll be on my phone sometimes because it's so hard to see down the field when you're at eye level. Like I have no idea what goes on in a game. Like most of the time I can't see super well, but you can always tell when the action's coming towards you. So that's when I'm getting, I've got my camera in my hands now. I'm like ready to go if anything happens. And it's always like those moments where they're rushing towards and like something happens. It's like my heart is going. It's like the feeling of adrenaline. There's nothing like it. Time slows down. I started mounting my phone on top of my camera to record video just so I can look back after and see what actually happened. And that, like, looking through it goes so much faster than I remember. But for me, it's like every shot I remember like very specifically, like following it, and it felt so slow to me. And second half, I'll probably switch sides to still stay on the offensive side. And then at end of the game, it's always fun because the players will usually either go thank the fans or they'll walk off of a certain part of the field. So I always like to be there for shots after the game of the players where if they're celebrating, they're like hyping up the fans, they're screaming, they're pumping their fists. They might even just go and have a conversation with some fans, sign autographs. And for like but the really exciting shots, the ones I always kind of remember are the ones where there's so much emotion in the players' faces and they're screaming at the crowd, they're loving the moment. And for me, like they're games that I remember mainly for what happened after the game. And then I'll take it sort of back to the photography room, throw all the pictures onto my hard drive, and then I'll edit. Usually I'll just do 2 or 3 shots for the night for my writer. And then I'll actually go back later on and go through the entire game and like weed out of like 1,000, 2,000 photos, maybe 50 to 150 shots that are any good.
Makes sense. That's an exciting day. It's so interesting to hear from a different perspective, like yourselves. For my experience, it's a lot different compared to yours. And I also experienced, for example, being a fan of my own team, for example, if I wasn't playing, I was injured as a player and I would be going to games, what would that experience be like at my own match day? That is very intriguing that I found as well, that, I didn't get to see because, say, for example, like playing for Cavs, for example, in Calgary, when I was injured and I would go to games on a match day, I was so surprised at some of the things I saw before the game take place. I had no idea that took place. I'm just focused normally on the game and actually going through, one entrance and coming out one entrance after the game. I don't really see too much of what goes on throughout the match day. So yeah, like yourself, you have a different experience to the fans also, where you're going through your certain type of protocol and stuff. And yeah, it's interesting to hear what you have to say. Is it weird being so close to the fans? Like, you're on the pitch, but you're not on the pitch type of thing. Is that kind of a weird place to be?
Yeah, I mean, like some stadiums, it's way more separate. You know, you've got like the fans aren't on the same level as you are. There's like gates between them and like where I am, so there's not really like it's kind of like this big separation. But then Pacific Stadium, for example, the fan section, like the supporters section, is on like on the field level. They're just on the other side of the fence basically, but they're right there with where I am. So when I shot this past year, I shot Vancouver versus Pacific, the Ferryside Derby match, and the fans were like they were the Pacific fans were there in full force because there was sort of like this underdog mentality that they had something to prove and then nothing to lose this game. So the fans were very excited, but they were right there with me. So they'd like kind of knock into me when they were celebrating. And I love it. That's my favorite thing because like I said, like for me, like no one cares. And not that no one cares, they're important shots, but the shots for me that matter the least are the action shots of a player shooting if it's not a goal or something like that. But the passion you get from fans behind you, like screaming, that's what makes football unique. And that's like the stories about that. And that's like when they're right there and I'm like, I've got fans yelling in my ear, I've got like horns going off around me. It's like it just makes the experience of shooting so much more exciting. You know, I love listening to the fans like do their chants. Sometimes like in Vancouver, there's this one guy who always yells at the opposing team's goalie, and like every time I hear him, I can't help but smile though because it's just like the culture is like that's what it's all about the culture for me. Like it's like that's the most exciting part of it.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Sounds, very, very exciting when you're there, hearing the fans, they're screaming, and maybe you also feel like you want to be a part of them. But you're doing your job and you're doing it very well. So continue, whatever you're doing, continue what you're doing.
For more content like this, like, share, and subscribe.